I'm going to explain to you this afternoon about how I've made this first draft of the movie on Bosnia, which actually I've been making for the past 3.5 years. Now, this is not the first time I've made a movie of this nature, and I want to introduce you first of all to this idea of making films in a different way than we would normally conceive of making films. So what is kaleidoscopic filmmaking? So I've already made another movie of this nature back in 2005 to 2008 when I was living in Nepal. And that was really the process where I discovered this kind of filmmaking. Quite by chance in a way, because I set out to make a film about the lamas of Tibet, and I was studying very closely with the lamas at that time. So I chose 3 principal places in Nepal, and then I filmed there, and then I had all the visuals, and then I really wanted to infuse the meaning of the of not just of Tibetan Buddhism, but the energy that I could feel around the lamas and within their circle into the movie. And I didn't know how to do that, of course, because it was not something that you can read in a textbook, but I decided that I would try and figure it out for myself. So anyway, through the process of making this movie, I discovered that through embedding a shape into the movie, and the shape itself would hold the meaning and the energy of what I would want to transmit. And in this case, you can see on the top right corner here, this picture here, the Circle of Immortality. I embedded the Circle of Immortality into this movie. And through doing this, I discovered a new way of making film. And since then, I've been experimenting with developing this new kind of filmmaking, which I've come to call kaleidoscopic filmmaking. So you can see here on the bottom left-hand corner, the living pyramid. I actually describe this quite haphazard process of figuring out how to make these kind of movies in this book from A to Z. And you know, it involves a very personal story as well, because it happened over a number of years. So what is kaleidoscopic filmmaking? Using the natural attributes of filmmaking, so in that sense, visuals along a timeline, which means the light, the music, which is the sound, the narration, which is the perception, and the timing, which is the 4th dimensional aspect of these, I could create a combination of the very essence of our being, which is light, sound, and perception, into through these skillful usages in filmmaking of the visuals, the music, and the narration. I could skillfully embed the essence of our being into the movie. And of course, if you think of it like a triangle, then the timing, the 4th dimension, would make it more like a tetrahedron, which of course we know is a very important shape in the sense of any kind of essential makeup and structure to our universe. So embedding shapes with intricate meanings into the layout of the timeline and the structure of the movie, using very, very specific and strict timing within each section, and then specific sounds to express meanings. This could mean music, or it could mean even narration, or it could mean punctuated noises. And then creating a narrative which would not steal an intellectual attention, but stir deeper levels of consciousness. So, I mean, in that sense, rather than talk more about the place and what happens there and who are the people and why are they there and what are they doing, I want to show those answers to those questions in the visuals themselves, and not rely too much on needing the details, but to really express the energy of the people and the place through narration rather than the details of what's going on. So the overall point in doing this is to naturally emanate a much deeper meaning to the viewer, so that there's a transmission going on rather than an intellectual study of any nature. So how I came to make a movie of this nature about the Bosnian Pyramid Complex was a process of just following the road, really, by chance, if one wants to use the words by chance. Of course, it was very much fated to be. I met Sam Osmanagic at a conference in South India, and again, by chance, the subject of my movie and how I'd made it came up, and he requested to see it. And in seeing this movie, The Circle of Immortality, he invited me to come to Bosnia and make a movie like that in Bosnia. So apart from going to Bosnia, learning about the place, taking visuals of its various aspects, I knew, having already done this with the movie I'd made in Nepal, I knew that I would need to find a shape, a very specific shape, a picture that would express the meaning of the place, meaning Bosnia, and the aspects of the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. I would be able to express the meaning of the place within this shape, so that I could embed this shape into the timeline of the movie in order to infuse the energy of that shape into the movie so that it could be transmitted to the viewer. Now, I'm going to explain to you in a little more detail what I mean by that. So the layout for the whole movie in 3 sections follows the sequence of shapes in the crystal of time. Now, this is the shape that I ultimately came to create to express the meaning of Bosnia. Now, this picture did not spring out overnight from nowhere. It was a very long and intricate process of various travels, various meetings with coincidental meetings, spontaneous meetings, synchronous meetings, however you want to look at it. It was through following the process of my life at the time that the subjects that I needed to study for the movie would come into the foreground, and that I would be guided to look at different topics and to delve deeper into their meaning and to relate them back to Bosnia. And you know, surprisingly, they were all very, very relevant. So the layout for the film would end up being the crystal of time, which you can see at the bottom, but then very succinctly towards when I thought that I was already ready to make the movie, more than a year ago now, another picture just came out of nowhere, and I could not continue with the progress I was making on the movie at the time, because I realized that I didn't have all the information yet. So I had never considered that I was going to need 2 pictures for the movie. But in a sense, this is only 1 picture, and I'll tell you why. Because here we have the crystal of time, we have one side of this golden circle, and then we have another side. And this picture, which is actually larger than the crystal of time, this picture, the diamond lens doorway to infinity, is what fits inside this golden circle. So really still, I'm talking about 1 picture here, but what I've done is I've highlighted a section of it and blown it up, magnified it in this picture, the diamond lens doorway to infinity. And as I came to understand, it was going to be absolutely impossible for me to make the movie until these 2 pictures were revealed. So because there were a lot of topics which I've included in previous presentations I've made about this process of interpreting the Bosnian movies and their relevance to Bosnia, I thought that I would just make a list here, because I'm not going to go into the meaning of the topics, because I've got more than 8 or 9 hours of video discussing these. But I would just let you know which topics came to the fore as I was moving around and gaining information about what should be embedded into the shapes. So the first topic, I pretty much listed them in chronological order here, but we've got the Naga beings, snakes and dragons, serpentine creatures, and their relation to the number 9. This was very, very key, and this set me off on the track of, in fact, this opened the road towards the first picture, the Crystal of Time. The Pythagorean tetrad, which you may know is 4 circles, and on top of the 4 circles, 3 circles, 2 circles on top of the 3 circles, and 1 circle at the apex, which has a whole host of meaning to it, very, very intricate meaning about the nature of our being. This is also deeply infused into the Crystal of Time. And this was actually how I started to lay out the whole piece. Octaves of harmonic resonance, both in terms of whole tones, so meaning an octave of 8 notes, 7 plus 1, which is the original note, repeated at a high dimensional state, and 12, which is an octave of semitones, again related to the same scale, but looking at its smaller increments of progression up the scale. So 8 and 12, very important numbers there. Consciousness, our awareness and our perception, and the Vajra, a ritual instrument used by Tibetan Buddhist masters. And in fact, the Crystal of Time, I'll just go back to it, the Crystal of Time picture you will see actually resembles if you know what a Tibetan master's ritual object looks like, the Vajra, and it looks like that. Fractality was the next subject, and the caduceus. Electromagnetism, and that means Hertzian waves and non-Hertzian waves, which are strictly not electromagnetism, but beyond that scale, as scalar waves. And then golden ratio phi angles, along with the Fibonacci sequences, and pi, and standing waves, pyramid energy, which is looking at tachyon energy, the very smallest, tiniest subatomic particle, even before we talk about electrons, protons, and neutrons. The tachyon energy is affected by the shapes of pyramids. The Kybalion, the Hermetica, and orgone energy. The vortices of energy transfer between dimensions, DNA, 2D and 3D solids and their relation to Hertzian vibrations and the factor 9 grid, time and time pulse, and crystals, both as solid rocks, the morphogenetic crystalline field, and mind, plus crystals as quasi-crystals and the very latest cutting edge knowledge of E8. So all these subjects are embedded into the Crystal of Time and the Diamond Lens Doorway to Infinity pictures. So how do I transmit once I've got the pictures? So let's just imagine I've now got the 2 pictures of the Crystal of Time and the Diamond Lens, but how do I transmit or transfer those into a movie? So I started off by looking at the key numbers in both the pictures. So we've got the octave of harmonic resonance in the Crystal of Time of whole tones is number 8, plus the golden central circular space, 9, which also relates to the number of vibrations of each of the principal 12 circles placed where numbers go on a clock in golden ratio proportion in the Diamond Lens Doorway to Infinity. Now I'm going to explain that to you, and I've made a little chart here to do that. If you look at in fact, first I'll just show you back to the whole picture. This is the Diamond Lens Doorway to Infinity. Now, because it's too small here, what I've done is I've blown up a portion of it, and I've also made a drawing So there are 9 vibrations of 5 colors in the diamond lens. Here you'll see the principal color is blue, and going inwards, we've got a smaller circle, which is green, a smaller circle, which is red, a smaller circle, which is white, and the smallest circle, which is yellow. Now, these go inwards at a golden ratio increments. You can see how the distance between the circles gets smaller and smaller as you get to the smaller circle. Now, likewise, from this principal blue circle, they also go outwards. So you've got blue, then you've got green, then you've got red, then you've got a white circle that comes out like this, and then the whole circle is a yellow circle. So something like this. Here is the blue is underneath here, emanating outwards, 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 outwards. This is the final yellow circle with the 12 principal blue circles on it. And then going inwards, there are 9 levels of vibration. So this was really a very key, effect of the number 9. And remember, the number 9 is also sitting inside the crystal of time in terms of the nagas. The nagas are the serpentine dragon beings, and in fact, in the crystal of time here, you'll see, although you can't see very well, all these pictures in the crystal of time are pictures of dragons and serpents and other mythological creatures related to nagas, and all taken on a trip that I made to China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, where you can see these kind of creatures adorning temples and in other places around the cities. So I could collect a whole host of photographs that could that could eventually be stuck onto these pictures. Maybe I should stop at this moment and explain that these pictures are actually not paintings or not graphically designed on a computer, but they are hard plyboard. So the actual layout, the actual edge of the base is a plyboard base covered with cloth, and then on top of the cloth, to make the shapes, are hard cardboard cut out into shapes, into various shapes, and then again covered in cardboard, and then finally covered in cloth, and then finally on the top of the pictures are stuck photographs which are relevant to the theme of the picture. So in the crystal of time, the theme is the naga beings and the dragons, and the theme in the diamond lens are the 5 colors. So the photographs on the top of these images here are just the colors that are relevant in the particular places. So let's go on in the key numbers. There are 5 principal layers of magnetism, the golden lines, and 5 of dark blue lines in the crystal of time. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in the the electricity part of magnetism. So the dark blue lines electro, and the golden lines are the magnetism here. Now the 5 elements and the 5 mental attributes of diamond lens, doorway to infinity. So again, we've got the 5 colors in the diamond lens that I showed you, 5 colors going inwards one way and outwards the other way, with one principal color of blue. So making 9 aspects. And again, in the crystal of time, we have the elements here, and I'm going to show you this in more detail, curling around in golden phi ratio proportions. Now, I've used the colors which are standard to the Tibetan Buddhist highest tantric yoga knowledge. So the green refers to the air, the red to the fire, the white to the water, and the yellow to the earth, and the blue here, the larger crystal, to the space. The number of main circles in the diamond lens doorway to infinity, forming 1 octave of harmonic resonance in semitones, is 12. And as I just described to you, there are 12 key blue circles sitting on the greater yellow circle, which runs around the edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. 12, and sitting where the numbers on the clock would go. And then the one whole circle that encompasses them, so there are 12, and then the whole circle makes 13. Then tuning to 432 hertz, 432 hertz, a very important number in the Hertzian grid. moving up and down in multiples of 9, a 14-tone matrix of synchronicity appears. And I'm just going to explain that in a little more detail here. This is the factor 9 grid. So this is the tuning method required to reveal geometric shapes based on this mathematical grid rather than mathematical ratios. And it's known as the factor 9 grid because the number 9 is found not only as the sum of every note on the grid, but also as the number required to move up and down the scale. So you can see here between 126 and 135 is 9, between 135 and 144 is 9, etc. all the way. And from C to B sharp, there are increments of 14 tones. So here on this grid, we find all of our geometric numbers, but modern tuning, unfortunately, modern tuning does not reveal one correlation to these geometric numbers. They've now changed the Hertzian vibration to 440, and it doesn't have the same effect as when we work on a 432 grid, because the 432 grid is totally in sync with every universal, galactic, every kind of cosmic occurrence and the emanation of timing of movements around planets, etc., etc. So when we tune to 432 and move up and down in the multiples of 9, this 14-tone matrix of synchronicity appears, and all of the numbers relevant to every primary shape, triangle, square, etc., also appear. I'm not going to get into that now because that's a whole nother topic, but just realize that all these Hertzian values are related to the emanation of different shapes, very, very precisely. So now, going deeper into, we've now got some key numbers written down. So I know that I'm looking at 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 5. I've got these different numbers in my mind. And going back to the crystal of time picture, I'm now going to dissect it into more pieces. So here, looking at these the wings of these like pincer-like arms coming out of this 64 square grid, which is also using the 4 colors of the elements here. Again, not randomly, but very precisely placed colors there. I then took out these arms and I just made this little diagram here. So I have here I have the air, and then here I have the fire, then the water, then the earth, etc., etc. All the way through, I made this little chart, and it came out in 12 elements in Fibonacci golden ratio shapes. Then I created them as a complete flow. So it would run like this from beginning to end. And then I added in some of the smaller details, like here we've got a crystal. So at the top is the crystal, then we've got the elements, then we've got another crystal, and then we've got this 64 grid. And then inside this 64 grid, although it's only shown in the central part, inside the 64 grid is this central circle, which relates to the diamond lens picture. And so I put this in here, and then we've got the left side of you see the left side and the right side. So you've got to imagine inside here, you've opened it up and you've got the left side, you've got the circle, and you've got the right side. And then you've got another crystal like this. So I've divided now, I've now added in all these other small aspects, like the smaller crystals, the 64 grid, the diamond lens picture, the doorway, the diamond lens doorway to infinity picture, and the larger crystals. So you see that there are 2 larger crystals at either end of the crystal of time. So now I've just divided the whole picture into symbols, and this can now be expanded into a layout for the visuals of the Bosnian movie. So 3 layers to the movie, which relate to actually the 3 levels of tachyon energy, which are affected by the shape of the pyramid. And so we've got the physical plane, we've got the mental plane, and we've got the spiritual plane. So now I'm going to expand this funny little diagram I've already made into its 9 sections. And 9 is a number that I know is correlating to many aspects, or enough of the important aspects of the meaning of what of the subjects that I've been studying to find the meaning of the pictures, to embed into the meaning of the pictures. Again, with the mental aspect, this is the central part of the crystal of time. 13 sections come out. Again, 13 is a number which fits with the meaning. And the spiritual aspect, so again, we've got 9 sections, kind of mirrored. This is mirrored. If you twist that around the other way, you'll find that it looks like this. So 9 sections with the big crystal added into the equation. Here's the symbol of the big crystal around the smaller symbols. So now I would need to code each of these symbolic aspects into types of visuals. And when I add up all these sections, I find all these sections, including the crystals, the 4 elements, the 64 grid, and the diamond lens, which are now coded in these aspects, I find that there are 31 sections of visuals in 3 parts to the movie. So then, rather than keeping it in code, I write it out in names. So now I know that the first visual I have here is a small crystal, then I have air, then I have fire, then small crystal, 64 grid, etc., etc., etc. And then around it, I have a large crystal. And again, this is the middle section, the mental plane, and again, for the spiritual plane. So now I write it out in words, because what I want to do now is to match these symbols with meanings in terms of Bosnian movie. So the small crystals, an upward pointing crystal would denote upwards movements or going along. So at that point, I would seek people who are walking upwards or moving along in some way. Downward pointing crystal will be people who are moving downwards in some way, downwards movement, or going along in some way. And then the air element, these elements codes. The air element I would relate to the dragon pyramid, the fire element to the sun pyramid, the water element to the moon pyramid, the earth element to the temple of Mother Earth. Then the 64 square grid that I've described, the left side of it and the right side of it, and the circle in the center, if you remember from the Crystal of Time picture. Both of these, left and right side, I would use as visuals of the Ravne Park. And then this central golden circle, the diamond lens doorway to infinity, would relate to Sarajevo, which is actually outside of the pyramid complex zone. And opposite to that is the very heart, the very center of the Pyramid Valley complex. So this would include 2 different types of visuals. Now, the large crystal capping each end of the crystal of time would denote the space element, which is referring to the love pyramid, and the other visions of Bosnia, which are spacious, beautiful, dancing, song, like this. So space element has a little bit of room in it. So now to the timing of the visuals. Now I've got my codes. My codes are now already defined in terms of Bosnia, but now I need to know how I'm going to time the visuals. So I come back to the 9 vibrations from the 12 main circles of this picture that I've made, that I've described to you here. And 9 times 12 is 108. Now, 108 is a spiritual number, and also on the factor 9 grid that I showed you just now, a 432 Hertzian wave. Now, 108 minutes is a little bit long for a movie, so I decided to divide it by 2. 54 minutes is very acceptable, and 54 is also on the factor 9 grid. So maybe there'll be a second movie, which will make it to 108 minutes in the end. So now I've got some time. I've got 54 minutes is my total. I've got 31 sections. So dividing that, up, it becomes 1.74 minutes per section, 1 minute 45 seconds, or 104.5 seconds if the movie is divided into equal sections. But I already know that that's not going to be so, because I've got this this layout here, if you remember rightly. So the first section of physical is going to be 9 sections. If you see here, the 9 sections, and then the 13, and then the 9. So I've now got to reproduce that here. The first section of physical will be 9 sections in golden ratio, ascending and descending vibrations of timing, according to the layout of the picture, the diamond lens. Then the second section of the mental section will be 13 sections in linear timing. So each of the sections will be exactly the same amount of time, 1 minute 45 seconds per section. And then the third section, which is the spiritual section, will be the same as the first section in 9 layers, again in golden ratio, ascending and descending vibrations of timing. So now it's to work out the details. So the timings for sections 1 and 3 of the visuals are going to be as follows. The whole movie is 54 minutes divided by 31. So each of the sections 1 and 3 are going to be 15.68 minutes each. Now, just very briefly going into the maths here, because it's just a process of going, of doing the sums. But the whole of that section, 9 sections, will be 15.8, then divided by the golden ratio, 1.618, comes to 9.69. Now remember, these are decimal points. I have to convert them further into time, into actually 60 seconds per minute timing. And then we've, again, through the same process, divided by 1.618, again divided by 1.618, etc., etc. So now I can work out the timing of each of the sections, making a total of 15.68 minutes for the whole of section 1 and the whole of section 3. Now I am going to stick very, very closely to these times. I am not going to go a second or two over these times. So when I lay out the visuals for the first 3 minutes, which are according to the codes now, which I've got written out in order, I'm going to stick very precisely to 3 minutes of the element of space, and then 1.85 minutes to something to do with related to motion, moving upwards. Then the next section refers to the dragon pyramid, and then the next section to the sun pyramid, etc., etc. I'm not going to go a minute over or a second over these timings. And this is where now embedding these timings into the movie, I am able to create a proper rhythm. I mean by proper, this is perfect golden ratio emanation. And golden ratio is a number that is used throughout our entire universe, where relative things, how relative things relate to each other in golden ratio proportion. Timing for section 2 of the visuals was much easier. I had to do a simple sum, 54 divided by 31 times 13. So a section would be 22.64 minutes, and then divided by 13 sections, making 1.74 minutes each. So adding these times 2 together, this and this added together equals 54 minutes. So bingo, I'm there. I've got my timing laid out for the movie. Now, when I translated this to making the movie itself, now this is the chart. It's obviously much larger, so you can't really easily read the script, what I've written here. This is all in pencil because, in fact, I think this side is in pen, and then I transformed it to pencil after that because there was a lot of rubbing out and making mistakes and calculating things and etc., etc. going on. So I put all my codes down the left-hand side and then worked out the timings according to what you've just seen in the chart in the last slide. And then I related them to the various aspects in the, of the visuals according to the codes. I mean, strictly speaking, and you know, sometimes it seemed a bit weird to do this first and that next and this next, but I thought, no, I have to strictly relate this to the Crystal of Time picture, otherwise I'm going to go off track here. So that's how, first of all, this is my visual layout, and then this got tacked on in the later stages of the music. So let's come on to the music. So I then conceived of a layout of 2 Fibonacci spirals, again in golden ratio proportion, containing the 5 elements and 5 mental attributes relating to this emanation of vibration in the diamond lens doorway to infinity. So again, the blue, if you remember rightly, the blue circle emanates inwards, getting smaller, those smaller and smaller circles, and then outwards. Again, this is the relation of the elements to our mental aggregates. So again, we have 9 layers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 2 more at the end, because actually this culminates in subtle realm of mind, and this culminates in the physical solid manifest reality. So the creative universe is disappearing into its oneness at this end, and the creative universe is appearing from its oneness at this end. And in the center, of course, we have the very key aspect of the perceptive state of awareness, the golden circle in the center of Crystal of Time, which refers to the light of awareness, the light of wisdom being. And that's right in the center here. So now I'm going to use this as the layout of the music. So this is based on the diamond lens, the doorway to infinity, which is of course the heart, being situated in the golden circle in the center of the Crystal of Time. It is the heart, and it is indeed the rhythm of Crystal of Time. So the music should be based on this diamond lens, the attributes of the diamond lens. So these Fibonacci spirals have now been cut up into these golden ratio proportions to become the timing of individual sections of the music for the movie. And you will see here how I've related to each of these aspects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., as you know, the different aspects I showed you in the picture before. So inside the diamond lens doorway to infinity, there are 12 principal circles inside one whole circle, making 13 circles, which I've already described. And in this picture, each of the 12 main circles are emanating 13 times in size of vibration in perfect golden ratio proportions. And this Fibonacci sequence pattern would symbolically display this. So far, I only talked about 9 vibrations, but actually, when you add the photographs on top, of which there are 4, then 9 plus 4 is 13. So there are total 13 dimensions of circles in the doorway, the diamond lens doorway to infinity. Again, this needs to be translated into the movie. You know, it's all very well having pretty pictures and diagrams, but this has to now be translated into the movie timing. So what I did was I formed a grid. I formed vertical lines and horizontal lines wherever the points crossed the main, wherever they hit their apex. So you can see this is the furthest point of the line here. This is the furthest point here, etc., etc. Yeah, this is the. So all of these lines relate to the furthest point that. On the Fibonacci spirals. So what I realized here, though, there are the 13 aspects, but as the point in the center occurs both once on the vertical line and also once on the horizontal line, I couldn't say, oh, it should be the vertical one should take precedence or the horizontal one should take precedence, but that they should both be considered. So there are actually 14 aspects in total, which very nicely relates to the 14-tone matrix of synchronicity when tuned to the 432 Hertz range on the factor 9 grid that I've showed you earlier. So again, it works, 14 works. So again, I've divided up these aspects, and now I know what I'm dealing with here. So now the timing of the music, again, it becomes easy because I have to follow the vertical lines on the grid that would form the main outline for the music. So we're talking about from the beginning to the end of the music, 54 minutes. And notice I'm only using 7 of the numbers, and these are the numbers related to the vertical lines. So as I described to you before, and actually the timing here has been converted into the sense of 60 seconds in a minute timing, you will see that I could relate these again in golden ratio proportion, so 54 divided by 1.618, etc., the golden ratio. I would have 10 minutes, 20 seconds for the drumming, and then again at the end, 10 minutes, 20 seconds for the drumming, again, the golden ratio increment becoming smaller. The gong, 6 minutes, 22, again at the end of the gong, again, the golden ratio divided by 1.618. Bowls, again the bowls, and in the center would be the singing. So now to work out the timing for the horizontal lines, I would need to work out some more golden ratios. So I just did a bit more maths. I went a bit further and found the smaller ratios of the golden ratio timings. And then to assimilate the horizontal lines into the music timeline, what I decided to do, and we can look at the grid down here on the bottom, is to infuse inside each section. So we know that, for example, we've got 10 minutes, 20 seconds of drumming. So after a period of 6 minutes of 22 seconds, so 6 minutes and 22 seconds into that 10 minutes and 20 seconds, there would be a period of 2 minutes and 26 seconds, which will be allocated for a different type of music, in this case, singing. And again, inside the gong section, so we've got here the gong section, 6 minutes and 22 seconds. Again, this would, after the 3 minutes and 56 seconds, there would be a period of 1 minute, 30 seconds of singing. And you will see that these are all related to these numbers that I've found, which are the increments of the golden ratio proportions. So in this way, I could create, there would be drumming, then there'll be singing, and then back to drumming again, then gong, then singing, then back to gong again, then bowls, then singing, then back to bowls again. The central section is slightly different because I needed to create a mirrored effect here. And inside, and now we've got the central part of the movie is also present in this central section. So we've got a total of 12 minutes and 45 seconds after 3 minutes and 56 seconds as a period of 1 minute and 30 seconds of meditation sounds. Then I had to go to the end of that section and take off 3 minutes and 56 seconds, and then put a period of 1 minute 30 seconds of the meditation sounds. And then that left a period of actually 2 minutes and 16 seconds in the middle that I divided into 2 sections of singing. So now we've got a perfect mirrored middle section. So now the movie is working like a mirror, starting with this, ending with this, and you can kind of fold it perfectly in half like that. And this is what the timeline actually looked like in the end. Again, I'm not sure I can blow it up while I'm showing it to you, but as a PowerPoint presentation, you can actually blow it up later when I'll upload this onto my website actually. And you can see that this section here on the left, this is the kind of music. Then this section here is the timing of that particular section. And then this is the visual. So how does it relate to that type of music and the timing? So the visual and the timing of that visual, you can see all these are all written in pencil. So it's like, you know, my own rough way of doing it. But I would know that inside the drumming section, I have a visual of space, climbing up the dragon pyramid and the sun pyramid, but that the sun pyramid would also go into the next aspect, which would be singing. And this is the singing section that's inside the drumming. And after this singing section, the drumming would come back to you, but would come back again, as I explained to you just earlier on. So we have drumming, gong, singing, gong, bowls, singing, bowls, like this, and then singing and meditation sound, singing, meditation sound, singing, like this, all the way through the movie. The time of it, the visual that goes on top of it, the length of that visual, and where it relates to the timeline. So the whole timeline, I'm moving in increments here until I reach the end of the timeline. So the synopsis of the movie layout. The visuals, we've got 9, and again 3 sections, the 9 sections in timing of golden ratio proportion, the mental 13 sections of same timing visual spiritual, the 9 sections of timing of golden ratio proportion. The timing of the visuals, again, I've already explained that. The music, again, I've explained that. Again, the timing, I've already explained that, and the narration. So this is like a holistic chart that explains the whole layout. So through these 3 levels of the movie, physical, mental to spiritual, I lead the viewer up the scales of harmonic resonance from physical to mental to spiritual planes, using all these tools of movie making, visuals, light, music, sound, narration, perception, and timing frequency, which was the purpose and the process that I'd already envisaged from the start. So this is how, in a nutshell, and I hope it's been understandable for you to follow this. Obviously, for me, it's easier because I'm inside it and I know what I did, but I hope it's been easy for you to follow the outline of how I actually put together this first draft of the Bosnian movie.